Okay, good morning to those who've decided to join us about how to delegate with ease. I'm very excited about this webinar. I'm just going to get started straight away. Others will probably join us as we go through. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully you will be able to see my screen fine. So we are sharing my screen now and I will get started. So really, this webinar is about, regardless of any position that you're at in your business, if you're a solo business owner, if you have got hundreds of people underneath you, oh, that's the door squeaking. It doesn't make any difference. Some of the things in here are going to help you to hopefully embrace what's available to you so that you can actually be more effective in the workplace. That's my goal today. So I'm hoping that everybody that's on is going to take something away that's going to make a difference in their workplace, regardless of whether they're a one-man band or one-person band or a big organisation. For those that haven't been on one of my webinars before, for those of you that don't know me, as you can see, this is just a quick rundown of who I am and what I'm sort of passionate or what I'm all about. I've been a business coach, business owner or business coaching for over 12 years and a business owner for well over 30 years. My passion is business planning and delegation is part of that. So this is a key element of business planning. I recently published my book last year, which is What's Your Plan? So if you haven't read it, I would encourage you to read it. Do a bit of motivational speaking so I can help more people. My goal is to touch 1 million people's hearts. I want to be a millionaire of hearts. And that's what drives me to leave a legacy before I leave this earth. I come from a long history of sports background, which is very much about planning and discipline, and have been no stranger to commitment. My husband and I have been married for, it says over 30 years, over 35 years now. So that's a bit of a snapshot of me. For those of you who don't know me, hopefully that gives you a little bit of understanding of where I come from. So what we're really doing today is looking at the power of letting go. That's what we want to do. And I've done many sessions with business owners where what we've done is we've asked for feedback. And so often the business owner is really, really busy being busy. But when they're in this mindset of if you want something done, you have to do it yourself. And they constantly have issues with being able to delegate to people and actually trust them to get it done right. So in a leadership position, it can often be a challenge to let go. That's a common thing, to give the work to people that you know you can do yourself, but actually entrusting them to do it for you. It is a very, very common challenge that people have. It's probably one of the most common that I find with business owners, especially growing business owners. My recommendation is to start small, and at the end of this webinar, I really urge you to make a commitment to start, even if it's small. Just start with very small things, delegating that don't actually hold much weight of the outcome, so that you can just start to get that habit of trust, that habit of delegating. So it's really 50% about you and 50% about them. You've got to have that mindset of being able to let go. So what happens with changing your mindset around delegating? What it does is it helps your whole team to grow. It helps your whole team to actually step up. So, a great example of this is to put it in the context of household chores. So if you've got children, when they were really young, and I remember this exact thing myself, I've done it recently with my grandson, it's really difficult to start to teach them how to wash dishes. It's a real mess. You get water everywhere and bubbles everywhere, and it's really difficult and it's really challenging. It's much easier to just do the dishes yourself. But then as time goes by, they get better and better. So now, as them being part of the family, we can now delegate the dishes to them. It's no longer something that you have to do all the time because they can't do it. But there is that painful period you've got to go through where you're actually having a bit of a mess until you can trust for them to do it by themselves. But if you don't get through that, you'll never actually delegate, and you'll be one of these people that are stuck always doing the dishes. That's my analogy, because it does take a little bit of time to trust them to do that. So delegation actually allows us to focus your attention on high-level tasks. And then what happens is it creates that system whereby smaller tasks, you can slowly but surely delegate them so that you can focus on more highly skilled tasks. That's the goal that we're actually looking for. So when we're looking at this in relation to the workplace, it's really a really huge opportunity to test your leadership skills. So when we look at what is workplace success underpinned by, it's really underpinned by empowering your team. And, you know, when we look at, I think Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, the one after that, I think that was Leaders Eat Last, when he talks about what was underpinning success of those companies that were 10 times more successful than the others, he always went back to the team. It was the team. And the team, what happens is when we empower a team, so if we look at what's the definition of word, you know, empowerment in leadership. So empowerment is the process of enabling or authorizing an individual to think, behave and to take action and control their work and decision making about their job in an autonomous, independent, self-directed way. So the state of feeling empowered is the state of having everybody in your team being truly enabling their leadership and having that leadership style or the leadership of each single person step up to the next level. So when we think about empowerment, if it is the process of enabling or authorising individuals to think, behave, take action and control their work and decision makings about their job autonomously and independently, then what we need to be doing as part of our role as a leader, if they're people in our team, is we need to be giving them that opportunity. Now, one of the things that motivate us as human beings, and one of the things that engages us as a team, is to be given the opportunity to grow, is to be given the opportunity to be mentored on what leadership is all about, not just be told what to do, not just be told, you know, how everything's being done and being directed, being able to have the opportunity to think for yourself and to be having the opportunity to step up as a true leader. And when we talk about leadership, it's the process of everyone being leaders in their own right. So when we look at what motivates a team, part of that is being empowered. Part of that is having the opportunity to step up, having the opportunity to be able to have the confidence to make decisions, have the confidence to step up and grow. Now, this is very, very relevant to delegation and to delegating, because if you as their manager or you as their leader are not delegating and trusting them, you're not giving them the opportunity to be empowered as leaders. You're not giving them that growth opportunity. Now, one of the things when we look at the psychology of success on how we learn the quickest is through discussion and through learning and teaching others. So as a manager, a leader, a business owner, one of the ways that we and they learn is by actually stepping up and learning how to do things differently. And when we look at the neurological motivators as human beings and what actually motivates us, We look at self-improvement. Now, again, that's if you're delegating things to people, they're getting the opportunity to self-improve. The other one is purpose and contribution. So again, if you're delegating them and trusting them, they're having that self-improvement. They're having that opportunity to actually step up to that next level. The next one, when we look at the next one, we've got reward and recognition. That's another one. Self-direction. All of these are part of delegating and giving them the opportunity to be able to step up. Whereas I've got business owners that I've spoken to many times, and, I've said, what are you doing to give them the opportunity to step up as leaders? And the comments being, oh, they're idiots, I can't give them anything to do, they'll make a mess of it. But hold on, how are you actually delegating to them as a leader? It really goes back to the person who's actually leading them to give them the opportunity, to give them the tools, to give them the trust, to give them that opportunity to step up. Because that's why people leave, because they're not motivated. They're not getting given the opportunity to grow. They're not being trusted. They're not empowered as they're in their own individual right. So one of the human motivators, having that growth and that contribution is very, very much part of delegation. So I hope that makes sense, because it's really critical to delegation to be able to trust them. So one of the things that I think is key to delegating, if you are new to delegating, is basically look at saying, all right, well, what are the skills of the people I have, and what are the abilities of the people I have? So look at saying, all right, well, as an example, I'll tell you what, I had this team of salespeople. So they were in the telecommunications industry, and they were complaining all the time about not having enough time to get their sales targets, because they had a lot of admin work to do. So what we did was we looked at the time that they were spending. We did a 2-week time study and looked at how much time were they spending on doing admin. Now, when we look at salespeople, these are people who are great at dealing with people, probably not people who are good at dealing with administrative tasks. So we found out that over this team of about a dozen salespeople, they were all spending 2 to 3 hours a day doing administration tasks badly. So what we did after we did this 2-week time study is we looked then at hiring 2 admin people, see, back to the skills, that were much better skilled at doing that actual task, and it freed up the salespeople to do all the admin. Now, they were doing the admin tasks twice as fast, and they were being paid per hour. That was much cheaper to pay them per hour than it was to have a salesperson who was worth a lot more GP per hour than they were, because these people were actually they're actually going out there and speaking to the customers. And then what happened is they were a lot more productive, and the sales figures across the board, they went up more than 20%. So that's the power of delegating and looking at the skills of saying, okay, am I skilled at this low priority task, or is there going to be someone who's a lot better skilled than me to do this? I spoke to a guy the other day, and he said he charges out $160 an hour for the work that he does, but he hadn't sent invoices out because he was so busy, because he's in the building trade. He hadn't sent invoices out for over 8 weeks. Now that's crazy. Why wouldn't you delegate that job? I said, how much could you get a bookkeeper for? Probably $35 an hour to actually start to send invoices out for you, even if you're hiring them or getting a bookkeeping company to do it 2 or 3 hours a week to get your invoices out. That was hundreds of thousands of dollars that was just sitting out there because this guy was too scared to delegate to somebody. Yeah, his billable rate was $160 an hour. So that's crazy. Why wouldn't you delegate to someone just because you're scared that they'll do the invoice wrong? Well, you can easily get someone to batch invoices and for you to just scan, check them, and then actually get them sent off. So can you see how actually looking at the skills of everything that you're doing or everything that your team's doing versus their hourly rate and seeing, are they that skilled in that area, or is there somebody else who could potentially do it faster, who could potentially do it better, and maybe for a lower hourly rate, to free them up to do other things that are more highly skilled and might be a higher hourly rate. So look at the skills of the people you have and see, are they best suited to what they're doing, and do they have skills that you could potentially delegate across sideways, downways, depending on the size of your team. One of the ways that we look at saying, okay, what are the skills that we have with our team, is having a regular skills matrix that's updated on a regular basis. Now, if part of what motivates us as a team is actually having personal growth, and that's one of the motivators of us, of humans, is having that personal growth and having that opportunity to grow. Having a skills matrix is as part of your HR or as part of your professional development for your team, is a huge way to tap into that motivator of them wanting growth. But it's also a really great way for you to have a quick access to, okay, who's skilled in that area, who's not skilled in that area, who needs to upskill in that particular area, so that if you have this skills matrix that's shared with the team and regularly update it or address it as part of their personal and professional development, to say what areas are interest for you and what areas are you working on, and who can mentor you in this, who's more skilled in this than you, so that as the team grows every month, we're all growing. We're all personally growing. We're all being more empowered in our role. We're learning more. We're having more skills. We're making ourselves a lot more valuable. And so this is another key to how you can actually delegate, by having a huge snapshot that's regularly updated of where everyone's skills are actually at. And it's a great resource for the whole team. And also looking at new projects for clients, you can see who's skilled in different things and who can mentor other people in different areas. So another huge key for delegating is actually looking at saying, okay, let's choose the right person for this job. Now, we've talked about what skills people have and who's more skilled at some people than the other people with the skills matrix. We've also talked about looking at starting to delegate very small, with low level and low risk tasks first, just little ones to start off with, and just test the waters on, how this person goes with just a small task, so it's not a big risk to your organisation. And so that you slowly but surely start to be comfortable with letting go. So you're not just letting go of, everything at once. But the next thing that is really valuable when we look at that is knowing who's best suited to the job. What's the right, what's the right personality and what's the right skills for this job, as well as having everyone's ideas coming together to help you to say, okay, what does this big picture look like? What does this, key outcome look like? By getting them involved in brainstorming, by getting them involved in the ideas, and really getting them to understand, what is this big picture like? What does it look like? So one of the things that I would highly recommend is to have an understanding of what are the different personalities, what are their different preferences in their different personalities, because one is skills, that's something that they've got, that's something that is from the past, and that's something that they can work on. But hold on, let's have a look at what are the different personality traits required for some of the things that you want to delegate, and knowing who in your team has got these personality traits. Now, I personally use disc profiling as a very simple tool to use. So when we look at DISC profiling, we're looking at saying, okay, is this person a very direct and guarded person? Are they fast-paced and task-orientated? Or are they direct and open? Are they fast-paced and people-orientated? Or are they somebody who is very slower-paced and task-orientated? So they're a very compliant. So when we look at the DISC profile of a person, they're generally stronger in one area than another, and that's just their style. That's just how they're made up. They're either direct, very direct and fast-paced, task-orientated. They're either an influencer person who's faster-paced but people-orientated. They're a very steady person who's slower-paced and people-orientated, or very compliant person who's slower-paced and task-orientated. So if you were looking at saying, what could I delegate? And this is an example that has happened in real life many times, where people talk about maybe they might have piles of invoices and someone has to enter them all. And I say, well, you know, why wouldn't you use something like Receipt Bank, or something that can make it very quick and simple and do it, you know, in a leveraged way? Well, we wouldn't get a people person to do something that's about data entry. We'd get someone who's a task orientated, potentially slower, because we want it to be accurate. So if we were looking at somebody who needed to ring up customers and update maybe the database with their customer details, we'd probably want a people person and a faster paced person. We wouldn't want someone who's a task orientated, slower paced person to do that. So if we're looking at saying, I'd like to delegate more, I'm holding on to too much. Well, one of the tools that you could look at is saying, do you know the personality styles of the people you have in your team? And are you utilising all of their personality traits and their styles? And could there potentially be a little bit of a tweak in your org chart to actually better match the personality styles that you have in your team? I mean, having someone, I had someone recently that had a massive, a lot of debtors, outstanding accounts where people owed them money, and they had somebody who was the bookkeeper, who was very slow-paced, task-orientated. They were having big problems picking up the phone and actually ringing the debtors and saying, hey, this invoice is really outstanding. You know, what can we do to help you get this paid? You know, have you got the invoice, etc. Now, having someone to do that job is probably not the best person to do that job. You want someone who's faster. You want someone who's probably more direct, so they don't have a problem with picking up the phone and saying, hey, this has been outstanding for 2 months now. What can we do to get this sorted out? What do we have to do? So this is really about looking at saying, you know, of your whole org chart, you know, is there anything we can move around slightly and delegate to other people who are naturally gifted in that area? That's their natural style of their way of being. So the closer someone's role is to the natural way of being, the easier it is for them to do it. So as a business owner, or as a leader, or as a manager, there is no way you can be good at everything. So that's why delegation is key, and that's why letting go is key to your efficiency and your team's efficiency. Because if you look at what you're really good at and stick to that, then that means you're happier. You're working in your flow, if you want to say that, your happy spot, and you're allowing your team to look at the things that you're not possibly good at. So DISC is a great tool to use to access, to get an idea of where the skills are actually at, the potential skills for the personality types. So another thing, when we look at delegating, before delegating tasks, it's actually crucial to trust that everybody on your team can take on the responsibility of that task at hand, and have the trust to make decisions by themselves. So, you know, before you start to delegate them, it's important to think if your team is actually ready to take on tasks. So when you're assigning a project to your team, if you do have a team, ensure that you do actually have faith that they can actually complete the task. And a lot of that is about your leadership. So getting clear on when the actual project is due is an important one. And reviewing this project so that you're very clear on, is that project complete? You know, if you're delegating a whole project to a team, you know, make sure that everyone finishes what they're assigned to actually do. Is the quality up to your standard? Does it look sloppy? Is it finished at the last minute? Making sure that you're very clear on reviewing, you know, what's actually been achieved at the end, and have they achieved? Has everything been completed to your satisfaction? If it's not been completed to your satisfaction, examine where the project fell, and make sure that you're willing to give them another go if you're actually looking at delegating to that team again. Small projects are great to start off with, and then that way you can test, where do we fall through without such a big complex project. So when we're looking at embracing individuals, when we're looking at delegating, embracing this individuality. So a single task can be effectively done in a dozen or so different ways. So if you're not the right person for the task, and you've been doing this particular task, you might not be actually doing it the best possible way. So it's really important to embrace creativity of your team. Ask for feedback. Ask for different ways that this job could be done. With the generation that we have now that are so comfortable with different applications and different plugins, it's great to actually get their feedback for, this is how I've always done it. You know, it probably could be done better. So trusting the feedback from the team, having a brainstorming session with, how can we do this better? This is how I've always done it. This is the process. This is the tools. What else? Now, you know, when we look at innovation time and time again, innovation comes from half an idea. So I don't know if anyone's seen the YouTube about where the internet came from, but it was actually born and it was actually out of two different ideas that came together to make one idea, which was the internet. It wasn't one person's idea, they had half an idea. So if we look at innovation and we look at creativity, it doesn't come from one place. It never does. It comes from multiple places. So I just can't understand why so often I see leaders, managers, business owners, they're holding on to everything. They're not letting go. They're not trusting. They're not delegating, because they think the only way to do this job is their way and no other way to do it better. Well, hold on. As we went on a couple of slides ago before about the different personality styles, you can't be good at every single part of your role. So why not sit down with your team, brainstorm a particular process of your business, a particular function of your business, and say, all right, let's brainstorm how this could be done different. How could it be done better? What have other people seen done in other companies? What are some other options to be done? What happens in other countries here? What are some different applications that we could actually implement here that would make this a little bit smoother? And get these ideas, get this creativity, embrace it, and try out different ways of doing things, because I can guarantee that the ideas of the team will come up with better and quicker and more efficient ways of doing it. And then that way they can have ownership, they can be delegated the project of redesigning that particular way it's happening, and then we can test and measure how that culmination of ideas has actually become more effective. So please, and if you don't have a team, if you're a one-man band or a small team, embrace creativity of who's in your community. A lot of people get feedback from Facebook groups, from LinkedIn groups, from trusted advisors like myself, like their accountant, like their bookkeeper. And even in that example of, you know, receipts, where some people say, oh yes, I just put it up into, you know, I scan it and put it up into Xero. Well, you know, if you're doing each separate invoice, that's going to take a long time. You know, are there better ways, quicker ways to do it? Yes, you can. You can batch them. You can use apps that actually categorize them and put them in, and then you just need to okay them. So please embrace your team and their feedback for then different ways that you can delegate, and then you can be more efficient. So, you know, it's just a resource that so many business owners don't utilize, the smarts of their team. So another one which is really crucial to actually understanding how we can delegate more. So if we want to ensure success, it's best if you can provide, or at least explain, whatever it is that you want to delegate, what success actually looks like. If you're explaining to somebody that you want to delegate something to them, like it might be, and I've done it myself, I've said, you know, can you set up the boardroom table, please? You know, I really want you to set that up. But have I really explained why I'm wanting them to set up the boardroom table and what my picture of success looks like, what my expectation of success looks like? It's sometimes what is in your brain is not what's in their brain, because they've never seen it before. It's very important for you to get very, very clear of, is there time constraints? Is there background information? Get very, very clear of what that success looks like before the person actually takes on the project that you're delegating to them. And if they don't have the big picture of what success looks like, you're setting them up for failure. And if you don't have the big picture of what success is like, you're setting them up for failure. You can't expect them to know all the details if you haven't actually outlined the whole initiative of what is actually involved at the end of this project. So getting very clear of what that looks like is essential to the success of the project. And I've seen people, you know, when they've said, oh, the person made a, you know, they made a dog's breakfast of that project. And I say, okay, well, how clear were you in explaining what your expectations were of that project? Did you give them timelines? Did you give them any documentation? Did you give them any examples? Did you give them the picture, the big picture of actually the end goal of that project? And the why. What's the why behind the project? If people know the why, they're a lot more motivated to actually go and make success of that project. So that's in relation to the project. But in relation to the big picture, do they know what the vision of the company actually is? Do they know how it actually aligns to the overall outcome of the company? Because if they do, they're going to be a lot more motivated to actually achieve it and to actually really get nailed down and get that project done. Because if they don't know how it actually fits in with their vision of the business, they don't know how it impacts the overall picture. And if you don't have a vision of where the business is going, or where that department is going, or where that part of the big picture that they're going to actually take control of is, it's really going to be hard for them to be motivated to do it. So having that clarity of what is the big picture vision of the company is a lot easier to delegate a part, because then they know what it's all about and they're going to be motivated to actually follow through. Deadlines are another thing. Now, deadlines must be clearly defined in order to be met. So if they're not clearly defined, it's really hard for people to meet the deadlines. If the project has multiple components in it, make sure that the team knows exactly which element of their project is due. So if you're new to delegating, basically you're working with a new team, or you're starting to delegate things you've never delegated before, or you're going to try this for the first time, I would really encourage you to make a schedule. And so if it might be, you know, doing a project around a new sales process, okay, step one is to get this initial inquiry template, pardon me, I'd like that completed by the end of next week. And you might need to work with the design person to get the design. So that might be part of that you'll need to deal with. So I've seen people have spreadsheets, checklists, Gantt charts, all of them are very, very useful for when we're starting to delegate. So there's no confusion over what you're expecting to have achieved by what date, and what is that, pardon me, what is that measurement, or what's the outcome that you need to see by that date, so that everybody is very, very clear. And then there's, my voice is gone, pardon me, there's no confusion. Checklists, we use Trello a lot. Trello is a bit of a handy one. Other than that, a lot of people use Excel spreadsheets and things like that. Have them shared as well, so that they can see that you know where they're up to on the project. So it's very transparent and clear. Okay, we're getting some progress here with whatever it is you're delegating to them. Pardon me. Open door policy. And an open mind approach is also key, and it goes back to the way that you've always done it, or the way that you do this particular thing might not be the best way. And if someone's doing something for the first time, it's really essential that they have the confidence that they can come to you and ask you for questions, because so often when we're delegating something, we assume people know how to do things. We assume that they know that this goes here. So it's really important that they're not scared, that their psychological safety in the workplace is intact, with enough confidence to come to you and go, hey, I just need some clarity around this. I just need to bounce a couple of ideas. I've got 2 or 3 options of how to do this. Can you help with this? Because often I see business owners that say, oh, yes, Suze, I had a go at delegating and they're an idiot and they couldn't do it and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, how much support did you give them if this is the first time they've ever done this? And it's like, well, they should know how to do it. They've been working here for years, but if they've never done it before, they won't know how to do it. So some things to keep in mind when you are implementing an open door policy, so that when you delegate something that they really know that they can come to you and ask questions, is if a team member comes into your office with an idea, please don't shut it down straight away. Listen to it, be open for it, try it on, because it might be something that is totally new that's going to make a huge difference to your business. So if they come to your office with an idea, please don't shut it down straight away. The second thing is listen to what your team members are saying. Really think about it. Really try it on. The other thing is allow others to build their own path by allowing them to have a voice in this process. They need to be allowed to have a voice so that they are actually valued as team members in this process. Recognize that strategies may be different from yours, and it gives them the opportunity to step up, and it gives your business unit or your business the opportunity for stepping up to the next level, to grow. So it's just making sure they have the space to step up, not just delegating and say, go and do it, and setting them up for failure. So it just keeps that psychological safety in what they're doing. Get that picture of success for that particular thing you're delegating very, very clear. Get whatever that looks like for that particular project, that picture as clear as possible. I know it's a really simple one, but so many people don't think of it. A picture says 1,000 words. If they're setting up for a workshop, have a picture of what it looks like set up. If they're creating a brochure, or if they're doing something that is there is a style of documents, like you would need to make sure that they can have an example of ones that you've done in the past, so that they actually know what is the expectation here. This is the standard that we accept this is to be done in. So have as many pictures as you can. I've had restaurants, I've had people that have been, setting up systems, things like that, where they can get screenshots, they can get pictures to give them as part of that delegation process, because it's very hard for somebody to get a picture of what's in your head into their head. But if we have a picture, it makes things so much easier. So great tool to use. Another thing as well that I've used before is Zoom meetings are great for being able to show someone how to do an actual process that might be done on the computer, and you're sharing the screen with yourself and recording it. And then you can save that as an instruction of how to, because often if you sit down with someone and say, oh, this is how you log this in, this is how you do this, and it's 6 or 7 steps, yes, you might write them down, but they think, oh gosh, where was that again? But if you've done a simple Zoom meeting that's been recorded, so you've got the video, you've got the voice, you've got the moving of the cursor, you've got everything there so that they can just watch that while they're doing their first 2 or 3 times. So again, it's a picture of what success looks like. Makes it so much easier for them. So if you're looking at delegating some things that you're still doing now, having that are on the computer, set up that Zoom so you can record it, and then start to actually have a bit of a little bit of a database of some of your training material that you could look at delegating down the track. Your employees would rather you share exactly what you're looking for than actually having them guess. So it sets them up for success much better than just having you just explain it to them and then hope that they'll actually do it right. So photos, videos, documents, anything that they can actually see is going to help them achieve success much better. Makes such a difference. Pardon me, check-ins are really important as well. So when we're looking at delegating a project to someone or a part of your role, pardon me, do you have regular check-in times to say, okay, let's check in at start of day for the next week with this role, this job that I'm getting you to do, so we can check in with how it's going. So say debtors, for example, pardon me, it might be that, you know, I had one organisation, they had over $300,000 of debtors. And so we looked at delegating this to somebody who had, they had the skill and they had the capacity to do this role. Now, if we just dumped that job to them and didn't check in, we wouldn't be able to finely tune what challenges they were having. So what they found is that there was quite a few people that hadn't actually received the emails with the invoices on. There was also quite a few people that didn't have the purchase orders didn't match up, so they needed the help of somebody else. But they didn't know these things were going to happen when they were first actually delegated the role, because it was the business owner's wife who had extra capacity and had a great personality for doing that job. So when you actually delegate someone to someone for the first time, set up check-in times to see how is it going. Are there any challenges? Have you got all the tools? What can I help you with? So it might be a 5-minute check-in every day. It might be a check-in every 2 or 3 days. Now, if you are going to do check-ins with them, make sure that you put these in your calendar and theirs, so that you don't renege on what your promise is, and so that they know that you're going to have a 5-minute check-in with them at 10 o'clock every day, or every second or third day, or once a week, to check in with how this project that you're delegating is actually going, so that if they do come back and say, look, I need help, I can't find these, I can't find the purchase orders. These councils are saying that the purchase orders don't match up. Okay, who will we speak to get the correct purchase orders? You know, they're the wrong people. They're not the right department. So where do we find out who the right person is to speak to? So, you know, often when people have started to delegate, and then the person that delegates to, pardon me, has come up with a roadblock, and then they've waited and been paralysed with not wanting to go on the next step. But if the business owner had had regular check-ins with them, they would have been able to quickly move on, work out what's the roadblock, how can we actually get through that to help you to meet the deadline. And the deadline might have been get debtors down to X amount of dollars by the end of the month or something like that. So have those check-ins so that you're actually creating success to get rid of any challenges that are coming up in the meantime. So very crucial. Another thing to remember is that you are still in control, that you're still in control. When we're looking at the org chart of the business, if there's somebody who is part of your team, or if there's someone who you're contracting to do a particular job, it's really important for you to actually, if you identify something's wrong, or if it's unfinished, or if there's an error, to be mindful to step in. Or if it looks like the project is not going to finish on time, or if someone's lost focus, or if they seem to be floundering. You know, when we talk about delegating, there's a difference between someone who's accountable and someone who's responsible. So you delegate the responsibility to somebody else to do that task. It might be the owner of a mechanics workshop. They're accountable for making sure that it's clean for occ health and safety, but they're probably not responsible for sweeping the floors. So it's important to understand that when you do delegate, you are still accountable for the outcome. So if there is any problems, you need to be able to step in and mentor them, help them, or train them on how to actually meet that responsibility. The same as it might be a bookkeeping firm. The person who's taken on the client is accountable for the outcome of that, but the person responsible is the person who's doing the data entry. But it's ultimately the person who's taken them on that owns a business. They're the one who's accountable for making sure that it's done correctly and in line with the contract that they've signed with the business owner. So it's be aware that even when you do delegate the responsibility, you're not delegating the accountability. You are still accountable for the outcome of whatever that is something that you've entrusted to someone to do, whether it's part of your team or whether it's a contractor. So ultimately, you're in charge. If something does go wrong and you aren't able, or they're not able to finish it on time, you know, please don't play the blame game. And we want to be able to step back and say, okay, let's resolve this roadblock next time. Let's put together a better plan so that next time we don't have this challenge again. So rather than blaming and making people, you know, feel stupid and making people feel like they've let you down, it's about saying, how can I be a better leader? And how can we put together a better plan to resolve these roadblocks so that next time we don't have these roadblocks? So it's just taking that ownership for yourself. So another one is just to be very clear on time for review the project. So when we think back to projects, when you were the person being delegated to, it's important to remember how you felt when you were being delegated projects. So did you complete all the projects successfully? And what did you like about how they were delegated to you, and what would you have changed? It's also important to identify any measurements or the outcomes that you will be determined that will tell you whether the project was a success or whether it wasn't a success, or what an amazing success looked like. So, you know, it's important to look at potentially fostering a means of expressing gratitude to your team as well when a project is actually successfully completed. You know, one of the other motivators of us as human beings, and one of the other ways to motivate people in a team, is positive reward and recognition. So often people say it's all about money. Well, it's not. When they've done studies and surveys on what motivates people, reward and recognition is always number one. And so if we're delegating and getting into the hang of delegating, it's important to give positive reward and recognition and reinforcement to people, because when we're looking at what motivates and reward and recognition is number one, contribution to the actual organisation is another one, and being part of a team is another one. That sense of accomplishment, that sense of being a key contributor to see, okay, where do I fit in here? So having that time to review. Often when we've done projects, we do a little bit of a quadrant and say, okay, what worked really well with this project? and brainstorm with the team. Okay, everyone brainstorms what worked really, really well. And then saying, all right, well, what didn't work so well? What could we improve next time? And then look at saying, all right, what score do we all give this? And what are some things that we can change and implement next time that we do this project? So making sure that that time for review is always set in after a project's finished, so that everybody can share their experience and look at how can we improve next time. And as part of that, having that reward and recognition piece is really key to them getting excited about next time, to them to be excited and motivated to take on more roles, to take on more responsibility, so that everyone's feeling empowered in their role. And when we look at these amazing companies that have done 10 times better than their competitors that were placed in the same time in the same industry, it's all about their team being empowered. It's all about them as a leader, as in the person who's leading them, and the people in the team all being leaders in their own right and all being trusted with different projects. It's all being having their own autonomy and reviewing and having this continual improvement process. So always factoring that review part in is crucial to actually continuing that delegation path with team members. So sorry about my voice, going a bit funny. So some helpful tips to remember in finishing off this, delegation webinar is look at deciding, what do you want to delegate? What are some things? So if you understand what you're good at, and if you understand your personality, you'll be able to easily have a look at the skills of you and the personality style of you, and look at what are all the things that you do in your role, and which things do you hate doing, which things are very low value, and not very much fun to do. And sometimes, doing the skills ease little quad template with saying plotting all the jobs that you do and how highly skilled is that job and how hard is it to do. That can give you a good idea of which things you should delegate. So basically deciding what are the things that are low skilled that you don't like doing. And then saying, all right, well, of the people I have in my current team, or of the people I have available to me, or you might not even have anyone available to you, you might actually look for someone to do that particular task. Like the chap that I spoke to recently that I mentioned before, that had, I think, 2 months of invoices he hadn't sent out because he was too busy. But hold on, you've got an overdraft and you're funding these people's money because you're too busy to write an invoice. Well, you can get someone for $35 an hour to do invoicing for you. So find somebody to do that task that you don't like doing, that you don't need to be very highly skilled, that you're not good at. So find someone who's very good at that skill and who is probably a lot cheaper than you doing it. Clearly communicate what your expectations are for that job, with pictures, with checklists, with instructions, with all the tools possible to see what success looks like. They need to know what successful outcome looks like. Making sure they're clear on the deadline, making sure very clear on the outcome. Make sure there's check-ins to keep an eye on how they're going with the project. And the last tip is make sure you reward them and give them credit when they've done a good job, when they've actually met the outcome. So we'll share those tips again. There's 5 tips to delegating. So 1, decide on what to delegate. So see what you can delegate that you're not good at, that you don't like doing, that is not highly skilled, that you're better to use your skills somewhere else. That's number 1. So decide what you need to delegate. Start off very small. Second one, pick someone who's good at that task. Pick someone who has skills in that area. Pick the right person. Don't just pick somebody who has the capacity. They might be the wrong person for the task. Thirdly, communicate clearly the outcome. Pictures, videos, checklists, examples. very clear instructions of what success looks like, when you expect it to be done, and what that measurement is for that to be completed. Fourthly, check in. Please check in with how they're going so that they can be mentored to help what that successful outcome looks like. The last one, number 5, is make sure you reward and recognise. Give them credit when credit's due. And that is going to help you so much with your business to get you out of doing things that you're not as good at that other people have got better skills at doing. So for me, that is, you know, pretty much a lot to digest for people. So I hope that's been very helpful. Delegating is basically a skill, just like any other skill, and it's essential to know your own strengths and weaknesses as a leader to be successful. If you want to be a successful delegator, if you're new to be delegating, don't disencourage don't get disencouraged when a project doesn't work out. Use it as an opportunity to actually improve your skills in leadership and improve your skills to actually be, you know, looking at how you can improve. I will stop sharing now. So I hope that's been useful. I'm just going to check if there's any questions here. We've got some chats. Yes, okay, we've got people who said they've learned a lot, and thank you. If there's any questions there, I'm more than happy for you to email me directly, and if I can help. I just really think it's, when I see people delegate, it just opens up so many more opportunities for them to be a lot more awesome, and for their business to be more awesome, to have the right people doing the right things, and you don't have to employ them. When I first started my business, my practice, 12 years ago, I employed a lady for half a day a month to do my accounts, because I knew that my time was much more valuable working with my clients. And then she started to come, it was then a full day a month, and then she started to come once a week, and then it came to 2 days a week, then 3 days a week, and then I had someone helping me full time. And when I looked at her personality and my personality, and her skills and mine, we were totally opposite. So that she did the things that I was not good at, and I did the things that I loved that I was good at, which is helping clients and working with them. So it can just give you a lot more opportunity. So thanks a lot. Hope it's been useful. I hope I've helped, and yeah, email me if there's any questions, and thank you so much for joining me. Much appreciated. See ya.